I think there's a variety of things that have to happen in addition to stopping the releases from Lake Okeechobee. We also need to address local runoff. I think that is a key component. And we must move to sewer, get away from septic tanks. And you also must have more storage of water locally so that you do not have that local runoff coming into the basin. This is extremely important. The Indian River Lagoon is a major natural resource that we have here. It's the most biodiverse lagoon in the country, in the world, so it has to be protected. I have been a vocal advocate for this for many years. I've done many memorials to Congress on this, going back to 2003, 2004. Look at my record, and it is a long history of advocating for this. I live on the river. I've been there for 40 years. I have seen the degradation happen over the years. My children grew up on the river. This is who we are in this community. And I have been a vocal advocate for years. And look at the memorials I have done. Look at the budget requests I have put in place. Evaluate that and then say what my record is.
Where do you differ from your opponent on your change?
Well, we differ dramatically. First of all, we differ in where we're taking our funding from. She's taken 22 different $500 contributions from Southern Gardens, which in her newspaper questions that she finally decided to answer for you guys, she said that she doesn't research her donors, which I think is really interesting because that's one of the first things I do when a check comes through from somebody I don't know. And I just did a Google search of Southern Garden citrus. Very first thing that comes up is Southern Garden citrus, U.S. sugar. So it wouldn't take a rocket scientist. I hope that somebody representing us in the legislature could do a Google search that would show that. That's 22 different times from there. She's taken 3 from A. duda, which is known to be related to citrus. She's taken 1 from Alico, which is water farming. She's taken 1 from American Export. She's taken 1 from Growing Florida's Future. She's taken 1 from Mosaic, which is kind of ironic because she took it in 2013 when we were fighting fertilizer bans. So that's one thing we differ on, is that I actually do not take money from the people who I'm willing to go there and speak against. The second thing we differ on is she's right, she did. She raised kids, and she raised them 40 years ago. I'm raising kids now that if my daughter has a cut on her leg, we do not let her swim in the Indian River Lagoon. Her kids got the benefit of swimming in the Indian River Lagoon and growing up enjoying the Treasure Coast, whereas my daughter only gets to swim if we go out of the inlet and down past the House of Refuge. I would rather take my chances with her getting eaten by a shark than getting Vibrio in the water that she has sat there and watched for 14 years just continuously get worse. When her kids were playing in the water behind their house 40 years ago, I'm pretty sure that wasn't a concern. So my child has been robbed of her childhood, whereas hers got to enjoy them. So that's one place we differ. So we differ in our funding sources. We differ in where our priorities lay. We also differ in what the solutions are. Her talking points just suddenly changed to buying land south of the lake. Suddenly, miraculously, she came to the conclusion that that was a good idea after Joe Negron had the wherewithal to come forward and talk about buying land south of the lake. Before that, her points aligned perfectly with Sugar talking points, that we needed to re-armor the dike, we needed to stick with the projects that were already in place, which were Sept and Sept, that we needed to focus on, and she still carries on some of these, that we needed to focus on north of the lake, north of the lake, north of the lake, that septic was the issue. Making sure that nobody talked about sugar and about the fact that they blockaded our ability to send water south. And her newspaper questions that she answered for you guys, I don't know who wrote them for her, but I can guarantee you that they probably weren't her, because she doesn't understand this issue and the complexity. She talked about ASR, which is Aquifer Storage Recovery Wells, and ASR was a valuable point in Sept, but it has been proven that it can't work, that they don't work, that they've been modeled that if we put water down and we go to bring it back up, that it's full of arsenic and it can't be used, and it then actually is an environmental pollutant. So she doesn't have an answer for how we're going to deal with ASR not working, which was where we were relying prior to this on our storage. Our storage needs to come south of the lake. We need to be able to clean, treat, convey, and flow that water into the Everglades. Because it's not just us dying, it's also Lee County, it's also Everglades. I mean, we're watching Florida Bay collapse, and I have nothing to say other than that we have extremely different priorities, because up until just recently, when Joe Negron came out with that plan, her talking points matched up perfectly with Sugar's. And suddenly, she has seen the light and is talking about buying land. Just 8 months ago, she would only talk about buying the appropriate land south of Lake Okeechobee. Who deems it appropriate? That's the most qualitative thing I've ever seen. What I think is appropriate is completely different than what U.S. Sugar thinks is appropriate, or Florida Crystals thinks is appropriate, or South Florida Water Management might think is appropriate. I mean, to say the appropriate land is like saying that I'm going to go out to a car dealer and buy the appropriate car. It could be anything. And so I just think it's really interesting that suddenly she's become an environmentalist when in 2013 she voted to extend sugar leases from 10 years to 30 years. That she has voted to take away our ability to monitor septic tanks with the Department of Health. I mean, it has been vote after vote against the Everglades. And now suddenly, because she brought forth Legacy Florida, she's the environmental heroine we've all been waiting for. Believe you me, I would not be running today if she was the environmental heroine we were looking for. I wouldn't be. I would be teaching high school or teaching college or enjoying my life with my family. I wouldn't be doing this.